Hello, it's me again, I'm Nafith. What we will demonstrate in this video is when a user connects with a certain credentials and that user or those users belong to a certain group in Active Directory as one of the conditions. Now ClearPass integrates with that Active Directory. Based on the conditions or the attributes returned to ClearPass, Aruba ClearPass will send instructions to the NAT device, in this case a mobility controller that is managing a campus AP, to assign the client, in this case employee, the blue one, to certain VLAN, in this example is VLAN 100. Otherwise, if non-employee logs in to the system, the non-employee will not be affected by that because that specific user doesn't meet the conditions in ClearPass. So as a result of that, the non-employee will be assigned to the VLAN that was configured inside the WLAN. In this case, it's VLAN 101, which is the original VLAN that was configured on the WLAN for those specific users. So let's have a look at what this means and let's go. So we're going to join ClearPass to Active Directory domain, AD domain. So you go to administration after you log in. So you go to administration. When you log in, you're on the dashboard. So you go to administration, then you go to the server configuration, click on your server. We have individual server here. Click on it. That will take you to this page. At the bottom says AD domains. You can be a member of multiple domains. You will only join one domain. Join AD domain. So you have to provide the domain details. So our domain details, dc1.class.lab. That's the domain controller name, and that's the domain name in the class.lab. And you need to use, in case of controller name conflict, use domain controller returned by DNS. That should be automatically be translated by the net for the, to a NetBIOS name. In this case, I have configured the domain NetBIOS name to be class, right? And then I would like to use a different username, cpp admin. You can provide the username like this, or you can say fully qualified domain name .class at class.lab. And the password, whatever password for that account is, we're going to do that. And we're going to say save. If everything works, then you should get to this stage with all green like this. So there are no issues. We can clearly see everything worked, and we can say close. You might have a bit of interruption in the service, meaning the ClearPass might not respond to requests for probably 1 or 2 minutes, but that's natural, that's okay. And then once everything is sorted, you can see we are member of class.lab domain, and the NetBIOS name for that domain is class, and we are done. So we're going to say save. We close this and we are done, and we are part of the domain. Now we're going to show you how to join a controller to ClearPass, because the ClearPass is a NAC server. And then once you do this, we will show how to authenticate using a mobility controller, or using the cloud service, or using even a switch. So I'm going to show you also how to use a CX switch based authentication, as well as Aruba OS legacy switch, how to authenticate users on the switches to the ClearPass. Okay, now we would like to integrate ClearPass as authentication server on the mobility controller. So this mobility controller is version 8.9, and we're going to look at that one, how to integrate ClearPass inside the mobility controller. So we log in with the credentials. And we will go to the configuration. I've created a WLAN even though the creation of WLAN is not the focus of this video. Probably we can create another WLAN. I create these two WLANs. You can clearly see that. Again, I will show you how to create one. We will go through the WLAN wizard here. That's a controller managed by itself, so it is not managed by a mobility conductor. So standalone mobility controller here. We'll add another one, and we'll just call it employee. We'll just call it secure .1x. That's the employee type, and we'll leave it as this, and we'll leave it as tunnel. Go next. And we will assign the VLAN that is related to this controller. In this case, the controller is connected to a switch with untagged VLAN 100, where this controller is managed on, and with VLAN 101 that is tagged for the employee, i.e. for the user data. So there we go. I will select WPA2 just in case machines are not compatible. And I'll show you how to add. I did already add a ClearPass, but I'm going to add another instance of that. Again, we are on the enterprise, remember. We have no servers added. We will click on the plus sign in the security. Already added one, but I would like to show you how to add another one. So to integrate ClearPass with the mobility controller, let's call it CBPM. The name is just something for you to relate to. IP 10254.1.23, and shared key, we're going to go for that. That is the shared key we have also configured. That's the same shared key we have configured on ClearPass itself. And we will submit. So that's the ClearPass. Next one, we'll leave everything. We're going to say, once that user authenticate, they will get authenticated role. So there we go. We apply the pending changes, so that will push the changes to the mobility controller. Now, if we look at the list of WLANs, we're going to see the new one we created, secure.1x. We'll go back and revisit our ClearPass policy manager. And we're going to create what's so-called a dynamic VLAN assignment for that ClearPass when the user connects. And we're going to change the VLAN. Of course, you can change the firewall role being sent back, but you can also, one of the things that I would like to show you here is also how to change the VLAN for the user. It depends maybe on the user condition, location, what ClearPass retains once that is the user is authenticated, and what it reads from the Active Directory in terms, say, maybe location, group membership, maybe name. So some details in the Active Directory that will be sent back to ClearPass, and based on these attributes that we can assign a user VLAN. We can demonstrate this one as well. So on ClearPass, there are multiple services in this instance. So on ClearPass, there are multiple services in this instance. And one of these services that we would like to use, we're going to bring it up at the very top so we can control what authenticates what, is the 802.1x WLAN service. So in this service, we created one and we said the conditions of the service. These two conditions are generic ones, IETF. The last or the third condition in this case has a condition that indicates if somebody connects from an Aruba SSID that contains, i.e. the name of that WLAN or SSID contains the word secure. It can be a combination of things, but at least there's a word secure in it. Then in this case, these conditions are meeting the service request. So in the authentication, we, as you know, remember we created AD as a source of authentication, and we could of course have multiple. So I put local as well as AD, as you remember. So the first condition says if the role equals employee, so when the user connects, the role of that user equals employee, assign or take this action. If the role equals contractor, take this action. Otherwise, if the role, when you read from Active Directory, the authorization, it means that we map whatever we read back to a role local. If that user that has authenticated is a member of a group inside Active Directory called engineer, then take this action called engineer action. Okay, and we say first applicable. So if you look at the Active Directory, indeed, you will notice that we have a user called engineer, and that user is a member of a group that we have created called engineer. We'll double check now. So this is a 2019 Windows Server, and that is acting as a domain controller. So we go to Active Directory users and computers. We are going to find there's an engineer here as a user, and that engineer is, we go to properties, we can see this is a member of the domain users, normal, and the engineers, that's the group where this user is also a member of. Now, so we know that user exists, and that user is a member of a group inside the AD. That group name is engineers. So we know this. Reviewing our condition, we said if that membership or the group where the user is a member of contains the word engineer, so engineers is okay, contains. So it might be engineer or my engineers or the group engineers, whatever. Contain, then take this action. Okay. So let's reorder to make sure that this service will take effect no matter what. So we're going to bring it up to the very top one. So we're going to go reorder. This is our service. We go to the very top. I'm going to say save. So we saved it. It's at the very top. You can clearly see the enforcement policy says engineer. If we look at that policy, we see there are three conditions. Whatever met first, it will be applicable. If none of these three conditions met, then it will be denied access. So let's have a look at the enforcement profile that's called engineer. So we go here in the enforcement profile, we look at the engineer, what does that mean? And in the action, it says radius action, that is Aruba, send them back to the mobility controller Aruba user role, a VLAN that is equal 100. So we in the WLAN configure the VLAN for the users to be 101. If the user successfully authenticates and meet the condition of a membership from AD belong to a group that contains engineer, then the VLAN assignment for that user will be changed from 101 to 100. Okay, let's remember before we try that when we configure the WLAN.1x, this one, secure.1x, the VLAN where the user will leave on was VLAN 101. And as per the ClearPass, we will change that behavior based on certain condition. And the very simple condition we put was just as a demonstration that if the user belongs to a group that has engineer in its name, then the VLAN that the user will egress is VLAN 100. Okay, so that's what we've done. What we're going to do right now, we're going to try that setup. Let's remember that scope or that VLAN 100 has a scope in DHCP server, and on the default gateway of the client, it will have also an IP helper address. I'll show you that now in a sec. So that is our DHCP server, and we have a scope for VLAN 100, and the pool here is giving IP range between 50 and 60. So if the user connects, they might get 50, 51, whatever, but between 50 and 60. So that's the user, and that's the VLAN. We will look at the core switch, which is basically the default gateway. We have configured IP helper in that specific VLAN. So we're going to connect to the switch. Just So we're going to look into show run VLAN 100. It tells us it has an IP helper address, which is the IP for the DHCP server. It has an IP address of this range. Okay. And now we will test the solution. So this is our virtual machine. We're going to connect. It's connected somewhere, but we're going to disconnect. And we will connect to our secure.1x. It will ask us username engineer and whatever password we have. We now connected. We picked up an IP address. We can look at that if you would like to. We can clearly see in here that this has picked up an IP in VLAN 100, and look at the IP 10.1.100.51. If we verify this one inside, we will both look at the mobility controller. We have two clients. One of them is what we have seen, and right, that's our client, and that's the IP address of our client, right? And you can see clearly that's the IP address, which is the same range as the VLAN. Now, if we log in with a different user, let us say that is not an engineer user, and as per our conditions on ClearPass, we have the policy, which is our enforcement policy. We are using enforcement policy, this one. If we use somebody, a username with a role equals employee, then the employee profile will be applicable. If you use somebody with a role equals contractor, then the contractor profile will be applicable. Look into these. We can see the, let's say, contractor profile. What does this do to us? So that will assign user role. So these are for two different actions. Of course, this could have been for VLAN or some other different attributes and so on and so forth, right? But our aim in this video is to demonstrate the fact that the VLAN, like some other things, can be changed based on certain conditions that are returned from, say, in this case, Active Directory to Aruba ClearPass. ClearPass is then instructing the NAT device, in this case the mobility controller, to apply certain settings. So going back, we can also look into the controller GUI command line, and we can see the user and the detail of that user. We'll have a look, just a quick one. So that's a contractor, the controller or mobility controller, show user. We can see the user that they're connected as engineer. They are forwarding the tunnel, and that's the IP address for our user and for the other user. You can clearly see that's the case, right? Obviously, you can look at details of that user in here. Again, this is not our focus in this training, but we have demonstrated the fact that this user will be assigned to VLAN 100. We will log in with a different user just to demonstrate the fact that user, the condition of that user has nothing to do with the VLAN, so it will be assigned to VLAN 101 as per the WLAN settings. So we're going to use on ClearPass, we're going to use one of the local users. This local user, I would like to use it as any of these local users, like test1. Yeah. So test1 has been assigned a role by default employee. I have assigned this role from the list of roles, and as per the conditions of the enforcement policy, it says if the role equals employee, then assign an employee profile, and employee profile simply is employee profile simply sending back Aruba user role, which is the firewall role that's called authenticated, which is already on the mobility controller. So we're going to demonstrate the fact that if you log in with a username that is not equal to engineer, the VLAN will be the default VLAN we have configured on the WLAN. So we'll show you now in the, that setting. So we're going to log in with this user, another one, to our WLAN. And we're going to log in with a different username. So we're going to log in with a test1 username, which is not meeting the conditions for the employee. So username will be test1, password, and we will log in a sec. Okay, so if we look at properties here, you will notice this user is in VLAN 101 because the condition of that is not applicable to that user. So if we go to the dashboard here, we can see 3 users, and the third user, which is connecting to whatever VLAN, so 4 clients here, and there's an engineer, there's test1, the one we just used. Okay, so click here, you'll find this user is in VLAN 101, which is the original VLAN that was configured on the WLAN itself. So that WLAN here, which is .1x WLAN, you can see 3 clients are connected to. And if you look at, of course, configuration here, we can go to, again, to remind you what we've done. You go to WLAN, and this is the one we're connecting to. This is the one we're connecting to. So if you click on that, you'll find the VLAN for this specific WLAN is equal 101. So this has finished the demonstration of the fact that mobility ClearPass can control many settings being sent back to a NAT device. Then I can control access to my network. That's part of what ClearPass can do. So thank you very much. So that's the instant AP, and simply speaking, I would like to create a WLAN on that instant AP, advertise it, and that WLAN will be using .1x authentication. So we're going to go for that. How? We logged into this instant AP, it's been reset. We go to networks, and we're going to add a new network in this case. So we're going to go configuration. See, this is the networks. This is the default one, which is advertised by default. And let's go set me up. We don't want this. We're going to create the proper one. And that's the original network that is for provisioning purpose only. So we're going to go plus, add a network. We're going to say employee, say instant AP .1x, so we know it. Wireless employee type, that's fine. And we're going to make it simple. Network assigned, we're given a static, and probably we're going to go, the infrastructure is configured with VLAN 33 tagged to the interface of the switch where this access point is connected to. We're going to go for this, and or probably we can change it to 31.131. So that's another VLAN tagged to that switch interface. So just make sure that VLAN is tagged to the switch interface. You move next. And then we'd like to go to the enterprise. And the enterprise, we leave it WLAN 2. And we'd like to add a server that is ClearPass. So we're going to give it a name, ClearPass. The name doesn't matter. We will go with a simple shared key. We're going to configure this one, and has to match the shared key of the device. I'll show you on ClearPass itself. And If you need to go for dynamic authorization, means that when you need to send a COA, you need to click on this. Okay, and you can go for the authentication, and you can go for accounting. The NAS IP will leave it as is, because that will be the one we're going to leave it as is, because we'll not configure any virtual IP, and we're going to go OK, so we can use this now. It has become available. Right, and there we go. No restrictions. We can go back and make selections here, like some other options, which we can go for accounting. Authentication server as the same as the accounting, and we will not do anything else here. We can do things like for roaming, and this is not our focus. Next, finish. So let's try to log in. So we're going to connect with a wireless machine and try to log into this system, to this employee instant AP.1x. The authentication should happen on the ClearPass. So ClearPass is the one that will authenticate us. Let's have a look at that. That's the machine. We're going to try to connect. This is the one. So we're going to connect, and then we should be asked for username, password. We're going to select the username and password, whatever password. That user exists on the ClearPass as a local database, but we will also use the users who are really members of the domain. This will fail. Connected. This will not fail. This will work. So let's see. Now we can clearly see this user has connected. It has picked up an IP address in the correct VLAN as we have expected it. And obviously this user is fully connected now. You can browse the internet. There are no issues whatsoever. Now we have seen that this user has authenticated, able to communicate with wherever. And thank you again for watching the video, and I will see you in future videos. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel so you can receive all the updates. Thank you.